A movie's box office numbers almost always spark controversy. And when the gross looks strong, audiences immediately start hoping for a sequel. But sometimes it's a matter of knowing how to read those numbers, because the way the money is actually divided is far more confusing than it seems. The film industry took over 100 years to evolve, going from simple, minute-long recordings to massive, multi-million-dollar productions surrounded by an entire commercial ecosystem. But who really gets rich from box office earnings? Why can a movie that makes twice its budget still be considered a failure? When a film earns $1 billion, how is that money actually split? One thing is certain: only a few players never lose money. And if you want to know why Robert Downey Jr. ended up being the biggest winner of the Avengers franchise, stick around until the end. To begin with, we need to understand that the budget made public usually includes only the cost of making the movie itself. This can be broken down into several stages. Development, which includes the purchase of rights, the script and rewrites, and legal costs. Pre-production, such as casting, auditions, and rehearsals. Costume and set design, storyboards, and planning. Production, which covers salaries for actors, the director, and the technical crew. Camera, lighting, and sound rentals. Locations, transportation, hotels, catering, and insurance. And post-production, including editing, visual effects, music, composer, recording, and licenses, sound design, and final mixing. All of these elements make up a film's production budget. But as you may have noticed, one crucial aspect is missing, especially in the modern era: marketing. Today, promoting a movie is essential, and audiences usually need to hear about it at least 12 months before its release. This is a fundamental condition, because the hype generated on social media often becomes free advertising. We've seen many examples of this, one of the most recent being Deadpool and Wolverine. With a strong marketing strategy, the film managed to capture the attention of millions online, which directly translated into box office success. Marketing expenses are rarely disclosed to the public, mainly because studios are not required to report them, and also because this responsibility usually falls on distributors. This detail is extremely important when we later talk about how profits are divided. Roughly speaking, marketing costs can be grouped into 3 categories. Small or auteur films typically spend around 10 to 25% of their production budget on marketing. Mid-budget films usually invest between 50 to 100% of their budget. And blockbusters launch far more aggressive campaigns: actor tours, press events, premieres, massive advertising across social media, television, radio, billboards, and more, often costing double or even more than the production budget itself. We can look at several recent films as clear examples of this. I'm going to use an Excel spreadsheet I created with the necessary formulas to accurately calculate a studio's real profits and how those earnings are distributed. I'll leave the link in the description so you can use it yourselves and see whether your favorite movie actually made money or lost it. Gladiator 2, 2024, had a production budget of $300 million. Its estimated marketing costs reached $200 million, including a very aggressive campaign across the United States, Europe, and Asia. Riding on the legacy and massive success of the original film, expectations were high for another blockbuster hit. However, the movie ultimately grossed $460 million worldwide, which places it firmly in the category of a major commercial failure. Joker, 2019, on the other hand, was made with a production budget of $55 million, with marketing expenses estimated at around $50 million. Its promotional strategy was far more organic, capitalizing on the controversy surrounding yet another reinvention of the character. Unlike Marvel-style releases, it didn't rely on overwhelming exposure. Instead, it benefited greatly from strong critical reception at festivals like Venice and Cannes. The result? A worldwide gross of over $1 billion, making it one of the most profitable films ever when measured by cost-to-return ratio. In Hollywood, there are the majors, historic film studios that have dominated the movie industry for decades. After Thomas Edison patented the kinetoscope and demanded high licensing fees for its use, a group of visionaries, most of them foreign immigrants, decided to set up their small production companies on the west coast of California. Carl Laemmle founded Universal Pictures, Adolph Zukor established Paramount Studios. Louis B. Mayer and Samuel Goldwyn brought MGM Studios to life. Joseph M. Schenck and Darryl F. Zanuck from 20th Century merged with William Fox to create 20th Century Fox. A group of Polish brothers founded Warner Brothers, while Walt and Roy Disney founded Disney Brothers Studios. Their overwhelming success over the years allowed them to consolidate enough power to handle two key tasks: producing the film and distributing it. However, these roles don't always go hand in hand. Smaller production companies often leave the heavy lifting of marketing and distribution to other firms. In many cases, distribution companies are owned by the same corporate conglomerate, a strategy designed to maximize profits and reduce risk. For example, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino was produced by Columbia Pictures, while distribution was handled by Sony. Interstellar was developed by Christopher Nolan's own studio, Syncope, but distribution was split between Paramount and Warner Brothers. To understand how profits are divided, we need to talk about revenue splits. Let's use Avengers: Endgame as an example. Out of its $2.8 billion worldwide box office at the domestic US level, theaters keep around 40%. That means that if the average ticket price is $16, Disney keeps $9.60, while theater chains keep the remaining $6.40. However, exhibitors found another way to become even more profitable. Between the 1930s and 1950s, when cinema transitioned away from silent films and silence inside theaters was no longer essential, street vendors began setting up outside cinemas selling popcorn, peanuts, candy, hot dogs, and drinks. Theater owners quickly realized they were losing millions in snack sales, which led to concessions becoming a core part of their business model. But without exhibitors, the physical venues where films are shown, the industry simply wouldn't exist. If you've seen The Founder, which tells the story of McDonald's early days, you'll understand the power of real estate as a business. In cinema, theaters hold a similar kind of leverage. That 40% split usually applies only during the opening week. As a movie stays longer in theaters, the percentage gradually shifts, and cinemas begin keeping a larger share than the studios themselves. At the international level, theaters typically keep around 60% of the box office. This number can vary depending on negotiations with distributors, who set these terms in advance. In China, local regulations are especially aggressive toward foreign films, with theaters reportedly keeping up to 80% of the revenue. Disney, in particular, is known for being extremely aggressive with its release conditions, often forcing theaters to accept lower percentages or risk not being allowed to screen their films at all. A recent example was the theatrical return of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, where Disney reportedly took up to 70% of the box office. Refusing these terms meant not being able to show the movie, which earned Disney the resentment of many theater chains. This is why most productions aim to be strong domestic hits during their opening weeks. After that point, profits shrink, and international returns are significantly lower. As a result, most films can't afford to remain in theaters for more than 6 weeks. There are plenty of examples of movies that performed well internationally but were domestic failures. Warcraft is a clear case. It had a production budget of $160 million and earned only $47 million in the US market. Internationally, however, it pulled in around $390 million more. Even so, it was considered a complete commercial failure that killed any hopes of a sequel. Universal Pictures ultimately received only about $183 million from that total. And as we've already seen, the real cost of a movie is usually about double its production budget. That puts the estimated loss at roughly $96 million. Another example is Transformers: Age of Extinction. With a budget of $210 million, it earned just $245 million domestically, the lowest domestic gross of the entire franchise at the time. Globally, however, it reached $860 million, which translated into roughly $483 million in revenue for Paramount, enough to save the franchise from being labeled a failure. As a general rule, For a movie to be considered profitable, it needs to make at least 2.5 times its production budget. Below that, it's considered a commercial failure. Anything above 5 times its budget is what we call a mega box office hit. Now let's go back to the Avengers example. Taking into account this first profit split, we need to look at what actually stays with the studio. If Disney kept $1.2 billion, we then subtract production costs, $356 million, and marketing expenses equal to the budget. That leaves around $554 million in real profit. Now comes the interesting part. From that money, Robert Downey Jr. didn't just receive his $20 million base salary. His contract included something major studios hate and something Disney and Netflix rarely offer anymore. But when they need a superstar, they sometimes have no choice. Profit participation, also known as a back-end deal. This is an agreement where an actor or director earns a percentage of a film's profits instead of a large fixed salary. Studios hate these deals because there are cases where actors end up making more money than the distribution companies themselves. There are many examples. Jack Nicholson in Batman to 1989 turned down a base salary in exchange for a percentage of box office revenue and merchandising. It's estimated he earned around $90 million. Warner Brothers made about $185 million, but had to invest nearly $100 million into the movie. Keanu Reeves, throughout the Matrix saga, also had profit participation on top of his salary, including earnings from sequels and merchandising. This reportedly earned him around $200 million in net profit. Rumors even say he shared part of his earnings with members of the production's technical crew. Leonardo DiCaprio negotiated a back-end deal for Inception, which allowed him to earn around $60 million. While he didn't make more than Warner Brothers, it was far more than his usual $20 million base salary. Christopher Nolan did the same, earning a similar amount. And speaking of directors, the biggest names in Hollywood can afford to negotiate these kinds of deals. Steven Spielberg is the highest-earning director of all time. Since his success with Jaws and Jurassic Park, he has consistently worked with box office profit participation, making him the richest director in Hollywood. Close behind is James Cameron, who not only participates as a director, but also as a producer and screenwriter on his films. Now we can imagine just how much he's earned from the Avatar saga, and how far removed that is from his early days working as a truck driver. There are cases where investing very little but being creative and innovative leads to massive rewards. The horror genre offers two very clear examples. In 1999, the Blair Witch Project became a pioneer of the found footage style, using this technique to create a terrifying documentary-like experience. With an investment of just $60,000, the film earned $1.5 million in its first week alone, an unbelievable success. It ultimately grossed $140 million domestically and another $100 million internationally, leaving an overwhelming $120 million profit for the small production company, Summit Entertainment. Years later, the formula was repeated with Paranormal Activity. With an almost absurdly low budget, often cited as around $15,000, the film turned that investment into nearly $193 million at the box office, becoming one of the most profitable movies in cinema history. Paramount Pictures, along with Steven Spielberg as producer, walked away with an estimated $93 million in net profit and the birth of an entire franchise. Taking all of this into account, Robert Downey Jr. earned over $100 million without investing a single dollar of his own. That makes him even more profitable. His charisma, the audience's affection, and his legendary performance allowed him to position himself as the highest-paid actor in cinema history for a single film. So now we can answer one of the questions from the beginning. The ones who never really lose are the movie stars. Whether a film is a success or a failure, they still earn massive salaries for their performances and image rights. That said, their contracts can be broken down further. From that total amount, around 10 to 15% goes to the agency or personal agent, and at least 5% goes to lawyers. From what remains, actors still have to pay federal and state taxes, accountants, and personal staff. Payments to Hollywood stars are usually made in 4 installments. When the contract is signed, when filming begins, when filming ends, and when the movie is released. Let's take Mother of 2017 as an example. Directed by Darren Aronofsky, the film had a production cost of $30 million, plus around $10 million in marketing, since it was a niche film. Jennifer Lawrence had a contract equal to half of the production budget, a salary of $15 million. The movie was a complete failure. But financially, it barely affected Jennifer Lawrence or her agent. The real losses were felt by Paramount and Protozoa Pictures. It also damaged Aronofsky's reputation, keeping him inactive for over 5 years, until his recent film, The Whale. So, who really gets rich from movies? Just look at the major studios. Even when they lose money at the box office, they recover it through merchandising, streaming distribution rights, digital and physical sales, theme parks, image and product licensing, video games, and television series. That's why, even though the movie business seems to revolve around ticket sales, the real profits come from the invisible giant. Toys, clothing, collectible figures, comics, and licensing deals. These are numbers we rarely get to see, but they're the real reason studios keep making movies, even ones that fail in theaters, because the business remains profitable. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit like and subscribe to support more content like this. I'd also love to read your opinion in the comments. And now you can do your own research. Which movie that seemed like a success actually wasn't? You can find the profit calculator linked in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.